leadership is an art and a science. In this episode of Essential Leadership Skills, TEDx speaker Rain Bennett discusses important leadership skills and a mindset that are needed to be successful in your career. Join our Director of Operations, Glenn Daniels, and his guest, Rain Bennett. Mr. Bennett is a two-time Emmy-nominated filmmaker, award-winning writer, keynote speaker, and storytelling coach, helping people create the lives that only they can lead by using their story. Join us now on Essential Leadership Skills, a discussion with Rain Bennett.
This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Well, everyone. Good morning and welcome on board. Yep, just so make sure that we all understand, no matter what time you think it is, it's morning someplace, so just live with it. I just always say good morning because it doesn't matter if I say good morning, I find some high energy in myself. So that's the way we're going to do it. Good morning, Mr. Bennett. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today and share your message. I found in getting ready for your interview and our pre-talk, this is going to be a great conversation. So I thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
We'll start with what is our traditional question, okay? And that simply is, what is unique, powerful about you, your TEDx, or your company that most people just don't know? Something that's unique and powerful that you say, you know what, people just don't know this, and let me share it. What is that?
I think that this is a great question because they're all kind of tied together, and I think that this is starting to emerge as what I might consider my life's mission, or at least my business's mission. This is an idea that I've just been marinating on for a while, and I can't get it out of my head. And I think a lot of people struggle with understanding their path forward. And a lot of people wisely try to learn from people who have been there before or who have done it. But I think we try a little too hard to either replicate someone else's path or do what they did or compete with them. And what I am coming to understand very clearly is that we all have our unique paths up the mountain, whatever metaphor you want to use, in life, in business. We all have our own unique paths. And that it is not so much about being an expert or being better than someone else, but being different. And we're already innately different because all of us are unique. We all have our unique stories, but hardly any of us leverage those stories and use those stories to create a path, to create a life, to create a business that is based off of our unique story and our unique set of skills, passions, and experiences. And so what my talk is about that is nobody cares about your experience or your expertise. They care about your unique perspective. What is the way that you approach what you do that is different than someone else? And that is how you carve out a lane for yourself that no one else exists in, that you don't have any competition in, because only you see the world the way you see it. Now, if you can understand how to build something off of those perspectives, now you really have something that nobody can compete with.
You know, I have to agree with you. I was listening to another podcast this morning, and it made me start thinking. The guy is just talking about telephones. So everybody on their cell phone, you have a unique tune, a unique frequency. Mm-hmm. Then I started thinking about everybody on their fingerprints is unique. No fingerprints are alike from any place across the entire world throughout all of time. And I think I would totally agree with you, even though sometimes we fight with people. You know, the social media experts we hire, they want you to be exactly like all the other social medias have been acceptable. Right. All those type of things. I think that really makes a difference. And I would agree with you that your premise of your talk, no one hires you for your expertise. I like that, and I think it was powerful. And I want to pull that apart, but first I want to dig into something else. Because you also said something we talked about in pre-show, and I want to get to that. But tell us about your journey from the time you conceived that you wanted to do the TED Talk to the time that you actually walked up on stage. I mean, how difficult was that? How many rejections did you get? Or just tell us a little bit about that.
I got a lot of rejections. Now, my TED Talk is coming up very soon, but I actually wrote about this recently. I have a weekly column because for the longest time, I attached myself a little too much to that goal without really asking myself why. You know, and when I first started speaking, which was just a few years ago, I'm still pretty new to it. I wanted to build my business around it. I knew that it could help, be one of the big dominoes that knocked down the other dominoes. The more I got out there and spoke and shared my ideas, the more business I would probably bring into my sphere.
Right.
And that proved to be true. But at the time, I was sitting with a business coach of mine and a mentor of mine, and we were writing down my goals, and TEDx was a goal. And he asked me that question, why? And I didn't really have an answer for him. Now I know that it was like, it's really just an ego boost. It was the stamp of approval. It was like to tell people that I was a TED speaker, a TEDx
I got to tell you, you're the first person to actually honestly admit that it's an ego boost.
And I would probably guess that most people, that's what it's for, because you see it front and center on every bio. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be. I also dealt with that same business coach about putting Emmy nominated in my bio, and I don't want to digress too much, but he made me change my perspective on how I viewed that. Right.
Yes. Yeah,
but TEDx speaker is a thing that a lot of us are after. The point that I'm trying to illustrate is so often we don't do that simple step of asking ourselves why. When he asked me why, I got defensive. I was like, what do you mean why? Like, because it's TEDx. Like, why wouldn't I, is how I felt about it. But the point he wanted to make was, Rain, you can still build a speaking career. You can still use speaking engagements to further your business and to promote your ideas and views on the world, your unique perspectives. TEDx is nice, but you don't need TEDx to be a professional speaker. And
yeah. Exactly.
And I didn't. I went on to build a speaking career and got paid well, and still getting paid well. Even, we just had the pandemic. We're still in it, but like 2020 really stopped speaking gigs. Now we're starting to find our way back a little bit. But I went on to build a business around it based off of my ideas on storytelling and on business. And now I never really gave up on the goal. Right. But I stopped making it this front and center thing that I was going after when I had no reason. So the question is, okay, let's say you got it in that first year, that first submission. Then what? What comes after that? There was no after that for me. And had I gotten it, I would have been sitting there like, okay, I did that, but it would have led to nothing. Instead, what I did was build a business, or that any speaking engagement that I did book logically led to another step. I would get more clients. I would promote my books and courses and things like that. Like, it had a goal behind the goal. So it took a long time for me to get over that. And I think the reason I finally got accepted is, and this is the main point, and I think this is important for people to hear, for all the rejections, and there wasn't, some people I know have submitted 20 times. Mine was probably more like 5 to different ones, but it was over the course of years, and each time still hurt. Yes, but back then I was submitting ideas and talks that I thought they might accept, that I thought they wanted to hear, instead of what I did this year, which was, hey, this is an idea, the one we're talking about today, that I can't stop thinking about. I've been ruminating on it. I've been writing about it. I've been talking with coaching clients about it. Like, I can't get this out of my mind, and I want to go shout it from the rooftops. And I don't care if TEDx takes it or not. I'm going to continue to push this idea because I think it's so profound, and I think it will really impact a lot of people. So when I went to them and pitched it with that type of attitude, not from a mindset of scarcity, but from a mindset of like abundance and full belief in this thing, it was like, hey, here's an idea that I think is awesome. And if y'all don't accept it, that's okay. I didn't put so much pressure on it. And I think for 2 reasons. One, I think it's a good idea that's worth spreading, and not just an idea that I think that they would like, right? It's genuinely an idea worth spreading. Exactly. And secondly, I didn't come out at it with that desperate, vibe, frequency, whatever you want to call it. I think that stuff really, really matters. It's like when you're desperately chasing something, you'll try to grip onto it so tightly that it slips through your fingers, right? That happens all the time.
Yeah. Let's dive into that a little bit deeper, because when we talked about that in pre-show, I started thinking about my career and how I started, once I kind of started saying, I don't need that client. I don't need that client.
Oh, that's a big day.
It just, all of a sudden, now you start to get booked. During the pandemic,
it's crazy.
I said, I don't need to really work. I can just retool what I really want to do, and that's create this platform around right now, this online membership magazine, not membership, but online magazine. I got so fired into that because I started thinking, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the mission I can get out. I do believe that a lot of us miss that. The abundance and scarcity, because I think a lot of TEDx speakers operate from scarcity. I have to get this to improve my career.
Yeah,
but like you're saying, the abundance.
Yeah, you don't have to have it. I mean, it's like my mentor at the time said, it's a nice to have. Now, I'm not saying that for some people, their wouldn't be a real purpose behind getting that. But the goal is to make you think about, where is this going? What's the goal behind the goal?
Yes.
Okay, so you get the TEDx. What do you hope to achieve from that? I had no answer to that question. And so when my business coach asked me that, I was like, what do you mean, why? And he wasn't provoking me. He was just saying, like, well, why is that a goal of yours? And I had no answer for that. And the point is, we should have an answer for that. Why is my goal to book speaking gigs now? Well, one, it's another revenue stream. Two, it pushes my ideas. I almost always book a coaching client or a video production client, which is my main source of income from those speaking gigs, because I have proven my unique perspectives and my thoughts on video production, on storytelling, on these things that I provide and I do. So when someone hears me speak, they say, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. Or more appropriately, I think he could really help us, because there's a lot of people who know what they're talking about. The point is to get to where you fit your clients very well. As I like to say, plenty of people out there have your skills, lots of people, and many of them are more skilled than you are, but nobody in this whole world has your story, which influences your approach to the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Had a comment from someone who said, love your point on why. You have to kind of understand why you need to get it done. And I think that's so powerful. I agree with that.
That we could have a whole talk on that, because that being self-aware is the first step to overcoming obstacles and achieving goals in anything. And that small, simple one-word question, makes us so defensive. It can be so provoking at times, or provocative, but it answers so much. And hardly any of us ask ourselves that. And when we start doing that, it opens up so many doors of opportunity. We learn so much about ourselves. And this is like emotionally, this is like, why did I react that way? Why do I feel that way about this subject? So many of us just go through life and we react and we do things and we never ask ourselves why. And when you do, you understand that, hey, this is why, and so this is what I should be doing. Or maybe there is no real reason, and maybe that's not something I should be dedicating my time and energy and money to, because I have no real purpose for doing it. But we get caught in the race.
I want to ask you, because you just said something that, if we're going to label it the way it's been labeled now, emotional intelligence. If we ask ourselves why, does that help us with our emotional intelligence score? Why do we behave this way? Why do we react this way? Why do people react to me this way?
Absolutely. I mean, that's all of it. But then it actually leads to your actual like intelligence. So, but first you just got to understand, because it can really limit the things that you're able to accomplish when you don't ask yourself that question. If you want to be a permanent learner and get better and better, which I personally do, then you have to be aware of your flaws. You have to be aware of what is influencing your thoughts. And it's always emotions. So it takes a little bit to dig in there. That's why you can't just be like, why, and then immediately answer yourself. And that's why people don't do it often, because it's challenging. It's not easy. You can't just say, why do I feel that way about this subject? And immediately yourself responds and just says, oh, because of this. When you were a child, it really impacted you and influenced the way you view the world for the rest of your life. No, it takes a little bit of work to figure that out.
It takes a little bit of work to figure that out. I want to step back just a little bit, though. Do you think it's sometimes okay to say why and not really have a purpose, but do it anyway because it's what you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There are things I fully believe that you should just do for the love of the game, for passion, right? Absolutely. Okay. When we're talking about business, when we're talking about leadership, when we're talking about trying to achieve goals, that's a different story. But sometimes, like, I do think there's still a lot of value in asking yourself why. Like, why did I do that? Why did why do I want to do this thing? But I don't always think that you have to have this achievement goal attached to it. There's a lot that you can do just for the sheer happiness. And in fact, I think it was Seth Godin, who's a marketing, guru. Yeah, right. I really look up to. But I think he said, I believe it was him who said, like, you should always have a hobby that you don't do, like, that you're not good at and that you don't do for money, right? That's just something you just do for the love of the game. And I feel like that is, I totally agree with that. For me, I play soccer. I've always played soccer. I play in a men's league now. I play pickup on Sundays, and hey, I still constantly want to get better. And so I learn, and I might practice, and I might work on things, and I might watch, people that I look up to. But, why do I go out and do it on Sunday morning when I didn't sleep much Saturday night because I have a newborn? I don't necessarily need, because I love it. That's the answer. And that's okay. There doesn't need to be a goal behind the goal, but there is somewhere, because the goal is peace of mind. The goal is physical fitness. The goal is camaraderie with the other people out there. So there is still something there, but it doesn't always have to be attached to this, like, I must achieve, if that's kind of where you're driving. Yeah,
absolutely. I wanted to ask you, just for the order of things. Well, you haven't done your TED Talk yet, but you got your 2 Emmy nominations.
Yeah.
When you got those, were you already in the abundance thinking, or
no. No, there's a whole story attached to those as well. I struggled with that. That's why, and I alluded to this earlier with my business coach, I didn't want to put that in my bio because I didn't win those Emmys. So I'm still struggling with that to this day. And here's, I think this is a good point to make. I'm glad you brought this up. I don't talk about this a lot. It doesn't, we always talk about storytelling. This is a good point, because my business coach, his name is David, and he said, the way he changed my perspective on it, he was like, well, think about all those people back home. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina of like 9,000 or 10,000 people. Yeah. All the people look up to me, for some of the things that I've done. And he's like, think about those people that you really look up to. And if you are like looking at it as like a failure, or like that it's not worth mentioning and it's not important, like, that's lame, well, I didn't win. And he's like, think about them, because they're saying, well, I haven't been nominated for an Emmy. I actually thought it was pretty cool. You're kind of disrespecting them, right? By looking at it as just like a failure. It's like, because now you're making them something that they think is actually awesome. You're making it sound like you're ungrateful for it. And it's just like, it could be a lot different. And so when he said that, I was like, man, that's such a great way to flip the script on that and change your perspective. And that's another big key. One is asking ourselves why. And others, sometimes understanding how you can flip the script and reframe a thought so that you do shift from that scarcity to that abundance mindset. Because at first, and still I struggle with it, I still see, the Emmy nominated and being like, oh, we were so close. I wanted that. But I went on and built a career being a documentary filmmaker, and it's changed my life. And I've been able to help others change their lives. You know what I mean? So, but I was not at that point yet.
That's absolute great coaching, and you don't realize you just coached me, because I had that same experience with Pulitzer nominated. I didn't win it. I didn't want to put it on. My business coach and saying you got to put it on, I said, but I didn't win it. So now you're kind of really removed any other excuse. I was thinking the other day I should take that off because I didn't win it. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, okay, wait a minute though. And what I got to start doing, I hope everybody will start doing the same thing. You get something, don't discount it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's nominated. It didn't win, but how many people want to be nominated and don't get nominated?
Yeah, that's what changed my perspective more than, any coach I think will want you to put those things that you've done well out there. If you're a best-selling author, put it out there because of the credibility that it provides if you're trying to get future work. I do understand that value, but really it was looking at it from that other perspective that made me be okay with it and be proud of it. And you know what? I just was speaking about the soccer. I was playing in a game last Wednesday night, and we won 5-0. Beat the dust off of this team. And as I was leaving, some of the other team were looking and said, "Hey, Rain, what did you get nominated for 2 Emmys for?" And I'm like, "How do you guys know that?" And we all had like a laugh. You know what I mean? So it still follows me. And the whole team that we just beat 5-0 turned and looked because they were interested. That's a perfect example of like that meant a lot to them. They were so curious. They wanted to know more about me. They're like, I had no idea you did that sort of thing. That is what we're looking to do, is make connections with people. And that's a perfect example of how just putting that on my bio, I don't even know where they saw it, but it's on my bio now. And that piqued their interest enough to, even though after they're, discouraged from getting beat. Did I mention that we beat them 5-0?
No, you didn't.
They still wanted to reach out and like connect more with that. That's what we're looking to do, is connect more deeply with people. So that's a perfect example of it happening in real life and not just me talking about it.
I'm going to back that up also into the abundance versus scarcity. Had you been operating from the scarcity, you would have been out telling them that.
Right.
But abundance said, just let it flow to you.
Yeah,
it's going
exactly.
To, and it comes back
exactly.
More,
and that's a perfect example. It flowed to me there. I didn't go out and try to chase anything. That came to me, and that's what that kind of thing does.
That's so good. You gave me some great coaching there. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting to get coached this morning, but you coached me up. I'm good
Hey,
for
when you're a
that.
coach, it just like happens. You
It
can't
just
help it. You
happened.
slip into that mindset.
Yep, it coached me up a little bit. Let's drop into a little bit more of your TED Talk itself. You mentioned that find the unique intersection that you can build a business from. Tell us what you mean by that. Give us an example. In other words, coach me again.
I'll give you a story.
Okay.
This happened and also came from another mentor of mine who I had a session with. Now, I have always struggled. We've talked about the soccer already. I've always been an athlete. I've played every sport. I've coached. I'm into fitness. That's always been a part of my life. I've also always been an artist, a writer. I've been in plays and musicals and show choir, and that was always a part of my life too. Now, I never saw someone navigate both of those worlds in where I came from. So much so that it not forced me, but it compelled me to keep those worlds compartmentalized. For my whole life, I didn't see how they could mesh together. And so my fitness and my sports friends would think, they wouldn't know, just like the other day, that I was a filmmaker and doing these things, or they'd think I was sensitive or nerdy because I like Broadway musicals. I was in musicals, yada, yada, yada. And then my artsy friends would think I was a meathead because I'd be doing like push-ups and pull-ups all day.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
So I always fought and struggled with these two identities. Now we're going to talk about flipping the script, right? And changing the perspective. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a business coach about what I was struggling with. And I told him that story. And he sat back as a good coach can do, objectively looking from the top down, and said, Rain, that's actually a pretty unique intersection. And just at that moment, I realized, like, I've been fighting to keep these two things apart and struggling to keep them apart because they're both me. I can't get rid of them. I could never not be one of those things because they are me. I still play soccer. I still make films and listen to musicals. All that. It's all me. That's who I am as a person. That's the crux of the whole talk, right? Finding who you are and how you can build something out of it. So when I sat back and let go of that scarcity mindset, right, that I had of these two identities and just let go, they flowed together. What if we are a health and wellness, a health and happiness filmmaker? Now that's a pretty unique lane to be in. I don't see a lot of competition in that lane, right?
You know what? You just landed on something I think is important. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
They always talk about niche, be in the niche, build for the niche. Just that, if you let them go and let those two things come together, created a niche that works for you.
Totally. Now here's where we're going with it. The goal is to figure out, once you establish that niche and those unique intersections, is identifying what groups of people would benefit from your unique perspectives and intersections, right? Because of my unique lane, I have a view on filmmaking, I have a view on the world, I have a view on storytelling that no one else has, right? Because no one else has my story.
And
so
even if they try to copy it, they can't because it's not their story.
Yes, right. And that's a point too, is we try to copy people that we look up to. I'm not saying don't pull clues from success. Success leaves clues, right? I'm not saying don't learn from people who have done what you're trying to do. But at some point you have to understand that to really make headway and make your own career, you need to establish your path. It can be influenced by people, but copying somebody is not going to get there. So once you understand, and once I understood that unique intersection, then I could understand how to build a business off of it, because I started my thesis, right? The way I viewed the world and viewed the work that I do started to emerge. Once that becomes clear and you understand your core belief, then you can build a world around it, and you can identify, hey, what are the types of people that would really benefit most from the way I view what I do.
And then that cleans up your marketing a whole lot.
Oh, a whole lot. That's everything, is understanding who you're talking to. Along the way, I found that whether it's in fitness or soccer or boxing or filmmaking or storytelling or social media marketing, the people that I help the most and the most effectively are beginners. Are people trying to get from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2. I'm not training world-class athletes how to compete for world championships. I'm not helping Apple or Coca-Cola tell great stories. They have agencies that do that. They are some of the best in the world. Budweiser, these big brands that have these great heartfelt commercials, right? I'm helping women get their first pull-ups, or right? People get their first pull-ups and push-ups. Or in the storytelling space now, in this part of my life, I'm helping people who are overworked and don't know how to use cameras, and they know they should be doing videos on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, but they don't know where to start. I'm helping them understand, hey, start here with understanding how to tell stories and take action. And then as you get better, you can add tools to the toolbox. But that's the type of person that I'm helping. Marketers that, nonprofits that have a one-person marketing team, entrepreneurs, small businesses, these people who really need help. There's a mountain above them, and they don't know how to even start because they don't have huge budgets and they don't have huge teams, and they're all wearing multiple hats. These are the people that I help the most.
Okay, so when we talk about that unique intersection and that creates that niche and that creates that marketing, that's how you're actually talking about creating the ideal client for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to identify the ideal client for yourself. So that's really not that difficult, or is it difficult? I mean, how would you coach somebody to deal with that area?
So it's not difficult, but like we said earlier with the asking yourself why, it takes some time. It's not an immediate thing. So the process that I help people go through in finding their unique intersections is basically a 3-part Venn diagram of your skills, your passions, and your experiences. Now that is the key. Your experiences are who you come from, where you come from, any unique communities that you belong to that have shaped your view of the world, right? I came from the coast, from like a fishing community and a farming community. That's influenced the way I view the world. It might not land its way in the middle of that Venn diagram, so what I do, but it has influenced the way I see the world. Sure. And so we're looking at these experiences. I had an alcoholic father. How's that changed who I am as a person? That's changed it a lot, right? Growing up as a kid, the way I view things is a lot differently. And the way that I operate, this is asking ourselves why, right? Why do you respond that way? Oh, because of this. So it is kind of therapeutic. It takes some time, and you have to be willing to ask yourself those questions and listen. And the metaphor or the analogy that I often use is it's kind of like doing a 500 or 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, right? If you were to take it out of the box, and usually the pieces come in a box or maybe they come in a bag, and if you were trying to take out one piece at a time and put that puzzle together, how long do you think it would take? Like you'd never do it, right? So what do you do? You dump them all out on the table, you flip them over, you scatter them all around, you make the table really messy, or whatever you're doing you make it really messy. It's scattered all over the place. You can't see how anything is connected, right? All you see is the 1,000 jigsaw puzzles scattered out on your kitchen table. And then what happens? You see a corner piece. Yeah. Then you see some edges. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then you see, there's like 12 blue ones here. And you look back and you see there's a blue circle on the image you're trying to create. Okay, so they must go together. The picture starts to emerge, starts to reveal itself, right? But the first thing you have to do is dump it all out on the table and get real messy. So similarly, you got to dig deep in here, and it's kind of like therapy. A lot of my coaching clients have said that, at least in this initial session, because we're taking all these experiences and all the things I've learned over my X amount of years, however old you are, and dumping them out on that table and seeing what unique creative ways they fit together to create a picture, to create an image, to create a story, right? So it's not difficult, but it is a little challenging, and it's not easy either, right? It takes some time. However, it's imperative, because what you learn from that what people learn from the first hour with me, and I've done this live in workshops too, is profound. And it could just be seeing two things that fit together, like me, like the health and wellness affinity that I had for that sort of thing, and filmmaking, and realizing, what if you put those together? Or just me understanding that, hey, this experience in your childhood, that's probably why you ended up being in the restaurant business. And when people see that and they're like, now they understand their purpose, their why, their passion behind it. And now they can clearly articulate why they do what they do. It's not because I'm a chef and I just cook like every other chef on the block. It's because when I was 12 years old, I lived in France for a summer. and it changed the way I view the world. And I learned how to cook from boom. You know what I'm saying? Your world of business is completely different now because you have that unique story. My brother is a chef. He didn't go to France. He's got his own story, and he uses that every day when he's talking to his potential clients, and they eat it up.
Well, I have to kind of play devil's advocate here a little bit.
Come on, let's go.
Good, because you're going to have people who, like, when
of course.
we first started talking about this a couple of weeks ago, I said, wait a minute, though. If you ask me that, I must probably deep down on the core say, hey, there is no story. There is no story. There is no experience that I can cross over, because I've trained myself throughout time, and people have trained themselves throughout time to discount the past. Went through a workshop where it just became really aware to me. What is easy for us is exceptional for other people. What we do easily oftentimes is exceptional for other people.
Yeah.
So we're trained that way. We're trained to, like you and I, we both discounted our nominations. We both discounted those. We're trained to do it that way.
Right.
How do you break me out of that?
How do I break you out of that mindset of?
Yeah, I haven't really done anything. There's not any really great stories I can tell about my past or that I want to know.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. So that what you're saying is a problem with people. A lot of people feel that way. Sometimes their stories are too big, and sometimes they think they're not profound enough. This is a great point. Your story, first of all, stories are happening all around us at all times of the day. So the story doesn't have to be this big transformational event that happened when, living in France for 3 months when you're 12, right? Stories happen right now. What's happening right now is a story. Whether it would compel someone to create change in their lives, I don't know. But the journey we're going on right now, there is a beginning and a middle and end to our conversation right now, right? And if we want to zoom out a little bit, it started a few weeks ago when we first talked, and now we're kind of coming to the climax and to the end of. Stories are happening at all times. To that person who believes that, it's actually small stories often are the ones that resonate the most, not epic tales, because the reason why stories are so effective and impactful is because they create connection. They create a shared feeling, shared emotions with people. That's why we latch onto them, because even though we didn't have that experience, we have most likely had that emotion, had that feeling, right? So it's not so much if you're doing something unrelatable, it's not so much these big events that nobody has ever experienced before that's going to relate. It's the lessons learned. It's the feelings felt, right? So it's not so much about being in France. It's what happened from that. And being in France could be going to summer camp for me as a kid, right? It's about what you learned and the transformation that happened and the emotion and the feelings that you felt. And so to that person who thinks that I don't really have anything that exciting, it's not about being exciting. It's about being real. It's about being human. It's about saying, hey, I felt this way and this thing happened and it taught me something else and I learned something and now I feel this way, or I see the world this way, or hey, I started with this problem and I didn't know how to figure it out. So then I tried this, didn't work. Tried that, didn't work. Then I was like, what if I tried this? And I did it. And it completely changed the way I do my business now.
Well, how powerful would that be for people to get a hold of that, but especially leaders to get a hold of it? Hey, I got to get this message across about change or something like that. How powerful would it be for them to learn to start telling stories that are authentic?
Clearly I'm biased. This is the work that I do.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I'm alone in what I'm about to say at all. I think it is the most powerful tool that we as humans have access to is our ability to communicate, our ability to clearly communicate what we're trying to say and our ideas. And the way that we do that is as humans. We won't be able to work as fast as robots. We won't be able to be as smart. But we as humans work together and inspire change through stories, through narrative. That is how we deliver and digest information. It's how we always have since the beginning of humanity, right? This is how it happens, not through lists of data points, not through PowerPoint presentations behind us, through stories, telling stories to other humans. So how powerful could it be is the question. It's powerful for everybody. Everybody needs to understand how to communicate better. But for leaders, it's imperative. It's vital. If you don't know how to communicate to your team in a way that inspires them to do the things that your company, your business needs, that inspires them to make the changes, that inspires them to take value and believe in themselves and want to do great things, your team is not going to last very long.
So that's where the inspiration comes from. That's powerful.
It's inspiration, but it's also information. And
teaching. Yeah, I agree.
Often people think that it's either I need to give them information or I give them a story. Like, here's the art and here's the science, but it's not. They're together. Stories are the way that we communicate information, not through data sets and lists. We weave that data and those statistics and that information into the story. As humans, we're neurologically designed to ingest, digest information through narrative format. Okay, so it's not one or the other. Like, hey, this makes you feel good and just inspires people, and then over here we'll give them the information in a spreadsheet. That lets it. No, this is how we communicate, and it's an art and a science, and it's informative and inspiring.
I think that's it's missing from a lot of educational things. I'm glad you said that. It's what the opening stated. Being a leader is art and science. It's not.
Yeah. I wrote that down because so is story. Yep. I wrote that down
because that's what it kind of is. I want to also just push something though, because it kind of fits into this idea of creating a core belief statement. It feels like that core belief should also be a story. That you, or let's back it up with a story. But what did you mean by a core belief statement? Craft a core belief.
A core belief statement is not. It's not necessarily an outward statement like you may see a mission statement or a vision statement that some companies have out there. A core belief statement is kind of the narrative drumbeat that your brand just bangs over and over again. It's what you stand for, what you believe in. More importantly, it's what has influenced your approach, your unique approach to the work that you do. Where it came from in my world was I have what a friend of mine called multi-passionitis. I have a lot of different interests. I'm involved in a lot of different projects. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. I'm a podcast host. The list goes on and on. So the thing I was struggling with before I had my epiphany, which is about 4 years ago now, with the unique intersections, was bouncing from thing to thing, just trying to be successful. Oh, I need a TEDx talk. Oh, I'll go try to do this TV show because I think it might get on TV, instead of because it aligns with my goals and my vision and my purpose. I was chasing things, going in circles.
Yeah.
So for me, what the core belief statement does is creates this central belief that your brand, or that you stand for, that you believe in, that influences the projects that you do. So in that case, it is the unifying narrative thread that weaves all those things together. So now I can be a podcast host and a speaker and a writer and a filmmaker, and they're not all segmented. They're all part of the Rain Bennett brand because they're all tied to that central core belief of how I view the work that you do. So, and you see all good brands have that kind of core belief, which is just, if I'm putting out an Instagram post, right, something small, that belief should be apparent. I should show, not tell it. That's what I'm saying. It's an internal statement so that I know, hey, it doesn't really align with my brand for me to post about this thing, right? Because here's my core belief statement. Does this, if I take this one post and look and compare it and cross-reference it to that core belief statement, does it align? Does it fit in? And if it doesn't, you can scoot that on. Now, for me, who's involved in a bunch of things, I might be posting about soccer. I might be posting about the football team. I might be posting about random things. And then there's no alignment. There's no unity. It's like, who are you? What do you stand for? The whole thing that I'm talking about is clearly identifying your unique perspective. Or if it's all over the place, nobody's going to know. And nobody's going to know how you can help them if you're all over the place. So that core belief statement is the anchor that keeps all the work that you do grounded together in one unit, even when it's multiple projects.
What is... I follow you, but I'm a little bit confused because it sounds like this core statement is a personal statement, and you allow that to drive and put your work together. Is it just personal? You said marketing, but is it both? I don't quite understand, not marketing, but I don't quite understand how business Help me out with that.
Sure,
Business grade,
absolutely.
that course
No,
statement.
it could be personal, but only if it's aligned with the projects that you're doing. You could have a different core belief statement per project. So the statement is like, I believe in this blank, in this philosophy. I believe this thought about the world, your unique perspective. And so I offer blank these results. I offer this is the solutions I provide people to these people, blank, to blank these people by providing ... These are your systems, your processes, your products if you have them.
Okay.
So for mine, it would be something like, I believe that storytelling is the most effective way to connect as humans. And so I offer the ability to tell great stories and make a deeper impact on your audience to small business owners, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits by offering coaching, keynote speeches, and workshops. Something like that. I mean, that's not precisely, but that's just
something
off,
close to that.
Off the cuff, something like it would be.
So it actually leads into more. Okay, I track with you a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
I want to ask you also the statement you made, and I want to see if you can explain this to me. And I added one over to it, but over and over again. And I decided it's over and over and over times 10 again. Tell us about that.
This actually leads, or what we were just talking about leads perfectly into this, because another misconception or thing that people get wrong about stories, you alluded to one where it's like, I don't really have a compelling story to tell. So many people think that. Also, sometimes, many times, people think, I've told that story already. Like, I don't want to just keep saying it. Like, people are going to get bored of that, aren't they, if I keep saying it? And the answer is flatly, no, they won't. And as your brand continues to grow, you'll get new people. But this is about enforcing what it is you stand for. Once you have that core belief statement, that's why I also kind of called it a narrative drumbeat, right? You're going to bang that over and over again. There's going to be 2 to 3 core values that are pillars upon which your brand sits atop, right? Rest upon the foundation. There's only a couple of them, 2 to 3 maximum, right? And that should be very clear. And you should tell people over and over and over again. You bang that drum beat, just like a commercial jingle, right? If we hear, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, we know what that is. That's because it's banged over and over and over again. If we heard that one commercial, it wouldn't stick in our heads. It's over and over and over again. Think about the people that you look up to, entrepreneurs you look up to, or content creators you look up to. I ask people this often and more than once when I ask people, like, who's an entrepreneur you look up to? Gary Vaynerchuk comes up. I'll use him as an example, whether you like him or not. I mean, I think he's a pretty likable guy. But you should be able to sum up someone like that and what they stand for, their core belief statement, but let's just use it in bullet points in 2 to 3 words. Are you familiar with Gary V?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So if I saw him, I'd say 3 things. I mean, if I had to do this with him, I'd say that what he stands for, the pillars upon which his brand stands for, are empathy, content creation, and I think the flip game. He loves trading cards. He loves going to garage sales. Like, he loves taking $1 and turning it into 10 on a huge scale and on small scales. He loves that game. That's embedded. Those 3 things are embedded in every post he will ever do, is something about that, so that you know what the Gary V brand is, right?
Right.
And anyone else that's successful in that manner will have the same thing. Whoever, I mean, if you're into finances, whatever you're into, if you're into sports, like, whomever you look up to has a brand about them that they stand for. And if you're trying to build a business off of that brand, then you have to constantly hit that, and people will not get tired of it. You may want to say it in fresh ways, but don't think that you've said that already and you can't say enough. I've told the story that I've told here today more times than I can count, and I will never stop telling it, because that is the story of what led me to the way I view the world now and view the work that I do. That story will never get old, right? Because people will always be out there looking for their moment and their story and their little epiphany or light bulb to go off so that they can achieve similar results.
And I'm going to add on to that, someone that I had the pleasure of working with, who's a monster in the industry now, just a monster. He does a particular workshop, and he tells the same stories in the workshop
Absolutely.
Year after year after year after 20 years telling the same story. He said that one time he changed the stories. He decided to change it. And a few people attacked him and said, hey, we came out to hear those
We
stories.
want to hear, play the
You've heard it
hits.
10 times in a row. But they want to hear that same story. Over and over again, just like you said, the jingle, just the power of repeating your and locking that in.
This is a good point and it ties back into where we started when we're thinking about ourselves and our own voices in our head and not about the people we're trying to impact. So with the Emmy nominated and the Pulitzer Prize nominated, we're in our own heads, right? Scarcity mindset, ego driven, insecurity. Yeah. I shouldn't put it in there because I got nominated. When I flipped the script and thought about the people who support me and how they actually thought it was awesome. And if I crap on it, it's kind of crapping on them, because they're like, well, I thought it was awesome. Right. Same thing here. When you're telling your stories and in your mind, your insecurity is telling you, like, I've said that over and over again, I got to switch it up. I'm bored to death. That might be true. Like a popular musician who's played that song time and time and time again. Of course, they're tired of playing it, right? But if you didn't play the hits at the concert, who's going to be suffering from that? You're going to be feeling better because you've played that song a million times. But how do you think your audience is going to feel? Now, when you flip the script and start considering them, you will always play the hits because that's what they came there for. And that's why they paid $100 for the ticket, not because of your new stuff that's a little like abstract. They want to hear the hits. So the same thing, if you started veering off and stopped telling that story, the reaction would be the same as it was your friend. I'm so glad you told that story because that's so accurate. The people want to hear. It's not about you and that voice in your head that's trying to psych you out. It will be there always.
And I throw this out there. You will always have one hater.
At
one
least.
Person who will come at you and say, well, you told that story before. Or one person will come to you and say, well, why would you even put that on there? You didn't win. One guy came to me and said, I was trying to verify your win. I said, it says nominated. Oh, well, then I don't know why you have it on there. One out of however many people have seen that now. And so you got to get out of your head with these things. Yeah. You got to tell, and that's a very powerful. That's why I said over and over and over again times 10, or over and over again to the 10th power, because you have to be able to do that. I love that point.
I want to make a point about what you just said, because sometimes it's hard to just let that pass when you hear somebody say something, especially if they say it kind of like a little rude, which sometimes people can. We're all human. We all have feelings, right? And here's a point, like, besides, because it's real easy to say, like, 99% of the people love it. Don't worry about that person. But that's not always easy because you heard it. It's out there. You are human. You have feelings. And despite the old adage, words do hurt, right? But what I have found is, and I think I can say this confidently, 0% of the time would that person have been your client, right? And then that changed their minds about you. It's always somebody who just they're in their own heads, dealing with their own issues, and they just want to get their opinion out there. It's never somebody who you were about to book, and then they read that, and then they didn't choose you. It's always just a troll. It's always just, someone out there. So that's what's helped me is, like, are they my audience? And if they're not, then it doesn't matter because that's who I'm speaking to. I can't help everybody in the world. We already talked about it. I help beginners. I help beginners that are ready to begin, basically. So I don't help, super duper pros, and I don't help people who aren't ready to do the work, which if someone is at that stage where they're trying to pick apart something like that, they're not ready to do the work we're about to do. They're not going to show up authentically and vulnerably for the work that I need them to do. So that's what helps me sleep at night and let that pass, is knowing that, like, we wouldn't have fit together anyway. Even if you wanted to hire me, already your attitude is we're not a match.
Yep. And that's a very powerful way to look at that too. 0% of the time, you wouldn't want them to be your clients. You wouldn't want to work with that type of person. That's a very good way to look at it. And they weren't going to be a client anyway, so they didn't lose anything.
Yeah, they weren't coming for you, and you weren't coming for them. So it's just like, cool, man. Sorry you feel that way. Scoot on.
Move on. Yeah. I'm not sorry you feel that way. I don't care that you feel that way. That's why I don't care.
Well, I mean, because you have identified at this point, if you've gone through this process, you've identified who you are here to serve. And when you clearly identify that, that basically means by default, all those other people that aren't that, you don't serve them. And so if this is not somebody that you're actively trying to serve, then what difference does it make? They can feel however they want to feel. They can criticize whatever they want to criticize. And if you're really big on the empathy game, you know that that person is coming from a place of pain and scarcity to themselves to even do that. you know? So they're dealing with their own issues, and what you can do is just wish them well and say, hey, good luck. You know, for you to voice something like that and be snarky like that is like, you got some darkness going on that you're going to have to navigate.
Yeah,
and hey, buddy, that's your journey.
And you don't need to strike back. I mean,
No.
Temptation would have been to say, for me, I mean, someone said, well, did you ask them what have they done?
No.
You know, that doesn't help anything.
Never strike back. There's no need to feed the trolls.
Because it's going to, that's what I try to tell people too who do these live broadcasts. They get the haters on with the comments, just ignore them.
Yeah, you fuel a fire by breathing air into it, right? You end a fire by smothering it. But
you hurt the people who are listening to you.
What's
They're
that?
You hurt the people who are listening to you. They're not into that. They want to hear that story that you're sharing, the power. They're not into that. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's another. We could talk about that for a while.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, because actually, I guess the time I promised you that I would stay within, we've already exceeded that, but that's fine, because I got some more questions. So if you have the time, let's
roll. I love doing this stuff.
Okay. All right. So now you haven't gotten the TEDx. You haven't actually recorded it yet. But the building of this, how did this change your life or your business?
You know, I have to say, we gave that long story at the beginning about how, asking ourselves why, and that we didn't need this. But at the same time, I never really let go of the goal. So it is a goal accomplished that I'm very proud of. And when I posted it, we talked about that stamp of approval. It is still a stamp of approval. Like, so is Emmy nominated, by the way. So is Pulitzer Prize nominated, by the way.
Stamps of approval. Yeah,
right. And that means something, whether our own stories in our head agree with that or not, right? That means something. So when I posted it and say, hey, I just got selected for TEDx, and I wrote the story that, that I told here today in a blog, people were so excited. Where can I get tickets? They were all for it. So, I mean, I'm very public about my life, the wins and the struggles. I put all my stuff out there, but people were so supportive of that. So, that, one, it was just like I felt that support immediately, and people would want to be there, if they could. Two, it was a goal achieved, right? That I accomplished. I think, though, the thing that has really changed me from the acceptance was back to the delivery of it, was that I, from a place of abundance, shared an idea. Like the acceptance means that I'm like on to something, right? Because the other ones that I had submitted, again, were just what I thought might be clever, or what I thought the judges may want to hear. Like I was trying to just be like, like clever, like, oh, maybe this would work. It wasn't just an idea that I genuinely thought was worth spreading. Again, I'm here talking about this idea here today. I was on a podcast yesterday. I will shout this from the rooftops, TEDx or not. That's an idea worth spreading, because I'm actively out there trying to spread. So when I submitted it, it came with that energy. Now, what I've learned from that is, like, one, I'm on to something. Two, I'm getting better at sharing my vision, because I did it in a way that those people responded to it. They got me on a phone call afterwards for like the first round of interviews after the submission process. Yeah. And I talked to them more about it. And I went more in depth, like we're doing here. And they were like, oh, I get it. It totally works. And so that's the part that has me inspired, is that I'm excited now moving forward, because I know that I have something that's resonating with people, and therefore will help me serve the people that I'm trying to serve and make an impact and help people create the change they're seeking to create.
So I can maybe see if this is correct. It sounds like you're saying that this helped you get more into the mindset of abundance. Absolutely. Because now, again, it flows to you, and this is another one flowing to me. And when that happens, kind of like when they say it rains, it pours, like now it breeds more of that abundance mindset. So that's the thing that's problem. When you want something so desperately, it's kind of like a paradox. You want something so desperately, you chase it away. When you stop needing it and wanting it so much, it starts to flow to you, and that compounds. The more that flows to you, the more flows to you, right? The more connections you make, the more depth you create. Like it's almost unfair to that person who I was in years past that needs something so desperately. They're just struggling to hang on. And that's why it's really hard, because it's really a mindset change. And you hear people say that all the time. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of hearing that. Like, I need to actively know, like, what do I do to grow my business? Relax.
And and it's like it really is a mindset change from that. But it takes a lot of work to get there. I also want to call attention to that. It ain't like you can just switch this overnight and all of a sudden wake up the next day and TEDx talks are flying in and new businesses starts flying in. It is a process, and it's a difficult one. So I don't also want to make light of it that it's just this, because some people do that, like, just got to change your mindset, man. All right, you know what I mean? There is still a process and steps to take to change your mindset, because that is a big shift. That's not a little shift.
Yeah, I don't know if I can agree with that or not.
That's okay.
Like I said, that's a whole nother conversation we can have, because I'm almost thinking that if you pre-pave the path with the mindset, and you don't, it takes, okay, yeah, maybe I do agree. It takes some time to get your mind to go that right way. But once you start pre-paving the path and you start expressing gratitude for what you see, that comes pretty quickly, I think.
Gratitude does change things quickly. I agree wholeheartedly with that. You can change your state that minute by being grateful. 100%. No argument there. But trying to build something and like grow a business, you know, I don't think it can change overnight. But I want to make a point about the opinions thing. Is like, it's totally okay for you to have actively disagreed with that, because there is no absolute truth, right? Yeah. The whole point I'm trying to make is that we all have different paths up the mountain. So what is true in your experience isn't necessarily true in mine, and vice versa. And that's the point. What I'm trying to do is find the people who my path and my story could help, because it's not everybody. But we are in this state right now as a culture where we want to be like, actually, that's false. And it's like, no, for me and people built like me, that is true. You know, that is a path forward. For people who have multiple passions and they can't find their way forward because they're spinning in circles, that helps. For someone who's always done one thing and they're a master at it, it's a different path. So there's no problem with disagreeing, because it's like our two truths are not mutually exclusive. You know,
I think as a TEDx speaker, you should put things out there where people can disagree with, or can at least think about.
That's the whole point, right? It's for us to learn, is to debate and discuss. That's the whole point.
I know when I do workshops, I mean, patting myself on the back, and I shouldn't. This is your show. But I kind of always just tell the people right at the start, don't bore me. Okay, yeah, I know you think I'm not supposed to bore you, but you will bore me if you agree with everything I say. So,
I might have to bite that. I might have to quote you on that. That is good.
Yeah, it just seems to open up the avenues for a lot of discussion. But the truth of the matter is, you can't agree with everything the speaker says in front of the room.
That's good. I really like that. I have a similar thing, but not as I don't want to say aggressive, because that the connotation there, but like it doesn't provoke as much from them. I say something a little more muted, and it doesn't work as well. Like where I'm like, hey, I want this to be interactive, speak up, etc. But yours is really good. I like that.
But I just enjoy it for a long time. But but now that's a different thing than what we should be talking about here, because we should be talking about you. But we're
talking about us, buddy. We're talking about us.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, a conversation about us. Okay. I want to know this though, because I think I saw something that's really powerful that you're doing. So I just want you to tell me, how are you helping people right now? I mean, how are you making a difference right now with people?
A couple different ways. You know, you had mentioned pivoting when the pandemic hit a little earlier, about, not being scarcity, from a scarcity mindset and being abundant. I had a similar thing happen where it's the speaking gigs. I just started speaking. In fact, in February 2020, I just stepped off my most recent national keynote. It was the 500 sailors for U.S. sailing. And I was like, oh, I'd only been speaking for a year. And I was just like, oh, we're good at this. Like, we're killing it. And then the next month, what happened? Like, no more live speaking engagements, right?
Gone.
So at that point, I was like, I'd been thinking about coaching, and I'd really started to shape the way I view my business and the work that I do. And so I just put a post out there to my email followers and maybe social media followers. And I was just like, hey, I'm offering free. We're all struggling right now. Many people have lost their jobs. And many people are trying to build a new thing. I'm offering free consulting, 1-hour consulting calls, coaching calls. Let me know if you're interested. Ton of people were interested, and I booked a ton of calls. And from that point on, I built a coaching portion of my business where I'm walking people through the process we basically outlined today, the one that I have gone through myself over the past 4 years.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's probably, the main thing I do is video production and filmmaking. And so I help companies tell their stories to make a deeper impact on their audiences. I help them tell those stories better. And then I do a lot of speeches we've already talked about in workshops today. But the thing that has come most recently and that really lights my heart on fire, I like helping anybody make change. That one-on-one coaching, which I also have a course of the same package for people who can't necessarily afford one-on-one coaching.
Right.
But I love seeing a light bulb go off in someone else's mind, like seeing them make those connections like I had when that coach was like, well, that's kind of a unique intersection. And finally let them come together. When I see that happen in my coaching clients, it's just like, I live for that. I love that moment. That's what lights my heart on fire. And so that is basically where I'm spending my time and energy now when I'm not doing video production and writing and speaking. And then the course is very new to give people a lower price point to get the same workflow that I launched this year. And then finally, in November 2nd, I have a book coming out as well to help people tell their stories better. So that will be the next thing that is coming down that I'm showing up.
Now, is that the Uncover the Story to launch? That's your coaching, your
course. It's my course, exactly. And that's basically the process we talked about today. Finding your unique intersections, crafting your core belief statement, establishing your core values, your narrative voice, and then finding your ideal clients.
Wonderful. Perfect beyond belief. Perfect. Hard question for you now. How do people get a hold of you?
Oh, well, I have to give my mom credit for this. There aren't a lot of Rain Bennett's in the world. If you don't remember my website, which is rainbennett.com, you can Google Rain Bennett, and there's not much competition out there. So I thank my mom for that. But Rain Bennett on almost all social media, rainbennett.com. I'm pretty easy to find. Like I said, I'm an open book. My life is an open book. It's out there, and I welcome you to come into that sphere and talk to me. As you hopefully can tell from this conversation, I love what I do. I love talking about this. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it at any time.
Absolutely. What's the 6 second stories? What's that?
6 Second Stories is my video production company, my video marketing company. And so 6 Second Stories is built off of the premise of telling impactful stories in a short amount of time, which is very challenging for people who aren't expert storytellers, because now we've been tasked with social media to tell stories in 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and all the way down to 6 seconds. It's really challenging to evoke emotion in people, which is what stories is all about, in 6 seconds. And so that's what I help people do. And then coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, that's the title of the book coming out on November 2nd.
Okay, not so coincidental. Okay, great. So now here comes the real hard question for you. What question should I have asked you that I did not ask you? So what question should I have asked you that I did not ask you?
Yeah, that's a great question, thought-provoking question. I think that it would be like, for those people listening, like, okay, Rain, this all sounds good. Where do I begin? Where do I start? Like, if we got off the show today and I inspired somebody with what we've talked about in my story, what next?
Okay.
Practically, like, if you're giving a speech, they like you to have key takeaways, right? What are the actionable takeaways?
Right.
So I'll say a couple things to that. I will say, learn how to tell stories. There are a multitude of ways you can do that. I have a podcast. I have free storytelling tips on my website, come out every Monday. I am not the only person in the storytelling space. There are a lot of different theories. And like we said earlier, there are a lot of different opinions and perspectives. And so I like a certain model. Other people have other models, but the basic structure is the same. Learn the structure of stories and how to tell them. And you do that and you execute that by taking action now. I just want the people to know that you have
key. Taking action now. Execute that by taking action now.
Yes.
That's such a key point. I want to just dwell on that for a second.
That's fine. I love this point. I say it all the time because the biggest barrier is not the information that's out there. It's what's going on here. And it's like, I'm not technically skilled enough. I don't know what good cameras are. I don't know what I'm doing. Analysis paralysis, imposter syndrome, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. It's all stories that we're telling ourselves. So what I try to encourage people to do, or what I help people do, is understand how to cultivate the skill of storytelling, right? That's why I said that first. and then just start telling your stories, whatever you have access to. If all you have is your smartphone, you can use that. You don't need a video production company or a video camera. You have one right here. Start telling stories. Then as you go on, you will get better. You will add tools to the toolbox, and then you will get better. Like we said earlier, if it keeps flowing, it flows more, it will start to flow for you. But it will never flow, my friends, if you don't take action. You have all the tools you need to take action right now.
I think it was Gary Vee who said that it's not going to be any good to do at least 100. And if you don't do 100, you're not ever going to get good.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it was. That sounds like something he would say. Yeah.
Yep. So, okay. So I interrupted with that, but that is a very powerful step right there.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. You can't mess it up. I mean, if people don't like it, they don't like it.
Yeah, I like that point about Gary Vee. Like it's gonna. There's other writers that say the same thing. It's like it's just about getting that first draft done. It's gonna suck.
Yeah.
Like that's the process. Every professional writer or whatever we're talking about. But let's talk about writing as an example. The first draft always sucks, even for the best of the best. Why are you any different? You're not. So get the crappy version done and let's keep going and make it better. But if you just sit there and like, I'm scared to do it, scarcity mindset.
Yes.
It's never going to flow. We keep coming back to the same themes, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. And because of the true themes of what it takes to be, in my mind, successful in business. Absolutely. And successful in life. Whenever, I don't care what the subject is. If you approach it from, I've got to clinch and hold on to it, it doesn't work. But if you just kind of open and let it flow right in. I mean, that's the analogy I think that we're saying. Don't hold the fist clutched because nothing can get in. The second you open up your hands, everything relaxes and it flows to you.
Mm-hmm. This is a lot of metaphors there too. I got to make this one. I used to box and I used to coach boxing, and you're actually weaker when you squeeze your hands. Real boxers aren't squeezing their fist, but if you see someone who's just an amateur in a street fight, they will squeeze their fist, and your body is weaker. And what he showed me, he illustrated, my trainer was like, he was pushing my arm down, I can't stop it from going down with my fist clench. But when I opened my hand, he couldn't move my arm. Your frame is actually stronger when you're not squeezing. That's a perfect physical example and metaphor to make this.
And it applies so well. Mm-hmm. Relax and let go. It comes to you.
And it actually makes your structure stronger.
I like that. Good. Boy, we could really continue for another hour easily on a few things.
I know.
I got to tell you, though, this has just been absolutely wonderful. I think it opens up many eyes to different ways of looking at doing your business. If it's just the scarcity and abundance issue, just that itself.
Yeah.
When you start talking about, hey, what's your core statement? How are you going to craft that? And do it over and over again. Those things you discussed are just powerful. So I know we'll get a lot of what I call writable moments out of this. The tweetable things, who cares? But writable, if someone sits down and picks up a pen and says, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, hope so.
Okay. The leaders who listen to this, I know they're going to share it. I have to thank you for giving us such great content today. I just really have to say thank you for that, because it's just great content you shared with us.
My pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm wait to get you again. When your book comes out, can we get you again maybe?
Yeah, for sure. The book and the TED Talk are both in November, early November, so that would be good.
Yeah, yep. By the way, just to throw a little warning to everybody else, if you don't have a TED Talk, you better be as dynamic as Mr. Bennett is. I mean, that's the purpose of this, is to dissect a TED Talk. But you can see he's dynamic, he's strong, he knows what he's doing, so it's easy to interview him.
Thank you.
If you don't have one, don't worry about it yet. Get one, and then let's talk. I will interview anybody who has a TED Talk, or if you're a subject matter expert in the leadership. So that's just I got to tell you guys, when I first spoke with him, I said, that's too much information to pass. I have to wait till November. Let's just do it now. so that's just perfect.
That's funny.
All right. Thanks again very much. I appreciate your time. I really do.
Absolutely.
Thank you for connecting with us here at Touchstone Publishers. Please join our group Essential Leadership Skills and share your leadership knowledge with us all.